Hey, good morning, everybody. David McLeod here from the San Francisco Bay Area. One of your hosts, speaker, and facilitator and coach. I am really excited because today we are having our very special 20th episode that we're calling our Life Matters TV Free for All. And to get us started, I'm gonna introduce my co-host Tommy Stoffel, and he's gonna show you our Free for All fishbowl, the patented device. Go, take it away there, Tommy.
Well, thanks, David, and welcome everybody to today's special episode. Here is the most awesome fishbowl, and within this fishbowl are the questions you guys have sent to us. So thanks in advance for all these awesome questions, all the things you guys have sent to us. There are some really deep, beautiful, thoughtful, reflective questions in here that we're going to get to in a moment. Before we do, I want to talk about the title. Because, you know, our title of Life Matters kind of has a double meaning of what matters to you in life, and then also that this life does matter. So we've got that kind of going on. And if you think about the name of this show, Free for All, that's really our intent, is to free ourselves from some of the things that keep us captive or keep us bound up. So in that note, I'm playing a little fun today, and I actually bought a shirt some time ago for this particular purpose, and it is my get out of jail free card shirt. So there you go. We're going to set people free today with this free for all as best we can, and we've got get out of jail free cards for you, all sorts of fun stuff. So here's the bowl, and what we're going to do is just reach in, pull out a question. We have the questions numbered. And so David's actually going to take that question and put it up in the chat box so you can see the question. I'll read it once, maybe twice, and then we're just going to do our best to answer it, see what comes of it. So
Yahoo!
That's the game. Yahoo! Let's start playing. And I don't have any. I was going to put a blindfold on to do this, but then that would be silly. So, all right. First question is, and I'm going to tell David the number first so he can start working on that. It's number 9. And this question comes from Mike, and this is a brilliant question. So the question is, trusting the inner voice. I often can't tell the difference between when I'm triggered and when my inner wisdom is trying to tell me something. How to tell the difference? So Mike, thanks first for that great question, because we all struggle with that, right? I joked a time back, and I said to somebody, I go, you know, that inner voice, that little voice in our head, isn't so little anymore. It's like we know it's there, but then this thing happens where our brain just kind of caves in and causes an avalanche, and all this stuff comes dumping in on it. And as soon as we think we have the answer or we have that intuition, we know what's going on, it's buried under rubble. So, David, anything to kind of help clarify how to distinguish between our intuition, our inner voice, and all that stupid chatter that goes on in our head?
Yeah, I think for me the big difference is in the way I feel. When it's coming into my heart and coming through me, through my heart and my soul, there's a way that I feel physically in my body. There's a kind of a resonance that happens, and it's not just my chatterbox up in my head yakking at me, and it's really something that's saying, hey, dude, you got to pay attention to this and just kind of follow along, follow this pull, and let yourself just feel as you move in that direction. So I don't get quite so distracted by what's happening in my mind anymore. And when it is happening in my mind, it's a little bit easier for me to make that distinction.
Yeah, that's right on and brilliant, and that's exactly what Kristen Richardson said on show number 4 a long time ago. She said, it's, you know, if I feel it's calm, if I feel it's peaceful, then I know it's right. If I feel fear, or if I feel rushed, or if I feel tense, then it's probably not my intuition. It's probably, you know, my head kind of causing things. So right on, David. There's something else. There's some other ways I practice this, because I teach people how to get to this and practice this too. One way is if you're in the mode of meditating, and you can even get silent for a little bit of time at a time, or you can quiet the head noise. What I'll do, especially if it's a big decision that I need to make, I'll ask the question, I'll just put it out there, and I'll say out there, but it's, asking my higher self the question, and then I'll get silent, and I'll get peaceful and quiet inside. And I find the answers in the silence all the time. They just pop in, and then you confirm it by feeling it. So that's another way I do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And one of the things that I noticed in Mike's question, he was saying sometimes he gets triggered. Well, I mean, we all get triggered from time to time. What I notice for myself is that when I'm in a state of being triggered, I'm not listening to my intuition at all. When I'm in a state of being triggered, there's usually some other energy going on inside me. It's usually anger. Sometimes it's fear. But when that kind of emotion happens inside me, I notice that it's really, really hard for me to stay connected to my inner voice. And so your idea of just kind of getting quiet, I think that's critical. I have to let the anger pass. I have to let the emotion just kind of pass through me. Then I can settle back into who I really am, remember who I am, and then I can connect in with my inner voice.
Yeah. So we're talking about the same thing of getting a little bit of silence to kind of feel the right answer. But right, Mike's question was, so what if I'm in the heat of the moment? What if I'm getting triggered? And Mike, this is another critical thing, and this takes practice. But you hear people say, just take a second to pause. Because usually the difference between a right answer and an answer that you regret, or a right response and a bad reaction, I distinguish between responses and reaction, is a split second. And I choose to respond, whereas my brain will snap and react, and then I'll go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? Or I shouldn't have said that. So in the heat of the moment, the more you practice this, the more you get conscious and aware. Sometimes a best response is no response.
Yeah.
If somebody's firing something at you, pause. And sometimes you just walk away. You don't have to give somebody an answer every time, right?
Right. Cool. Thank you, bro. Let's grab question number 2 and see what happens.
All right. Thanks, Mike, for that great question. And Mike, and a lot of everyone who's out there, the fact that you're asking these questions, give yourself just the acknowledgement and the credit that you have that level of awareness in the first place, that maybe I'm not always listening to my intuition, or that you, in fact, have it. A lot of people don't have that awareness. So a lot of kudos and credit to the team out here, Team Spirit, who has that level of awareness in the first place. And you're on the right path, and it'll come clearer to you. All right, question 21. This one comes from Rhonda. And Rhonda asks, how do I find a balance between the work I need to do to make a living and the work I want to do to honor my purpose of helping and serving others in their transformation? How do I find the balance? It's kind of like the life-work balance, where the work is what you're doing to make the money, to pay the bills, which we have to do in life. And the life part of the life-work balance is your purpose, living your purpose, doing what you enjoy doing what you love doing what you're here to do in some cases.
Yeah, I think one of the subtexts that I'm hearing in that question, maybe this is not what Rhonda had in mind, but it seems that we have a general belief in our society that doing anything that helps people raise awareness and become more enlightened and become more aligned and attuned with their purpose, and any kind of spiritual work and stuff like that has to be free. We're not supposed to charge money for it. We're not supposed to associate money with that sort of thing. And I think Neil Donald Walsh talks about this a lot. He talks about our basic beliefs in money being filthy and dirty and the root of all evil and all that kind of stuff. I think we need to address that and say that, wait a minute, money is just a form of energy, just like anything else is. And I can use any form of energy to help do my work. And what's really another thing that I want to say is when I'm aligned with my heart and my soul, it doesn't feel like work. And so consequently, it's a little bit harder for me to ask for the money. I totally get that, and I think that this is something that we all need to work on a little bit. What do you think about that, Tommy?
I totally agree, David. And from this point forward, it's going to cost $700 an episode to watch the show.
Very good. Awesome, dude.
So I'm stepping into my no, you're right on track though. And there's another question in the bowl about that, about almost feeling guilty asking for funds. And this is a person who's a massage therapist. So it kind of seems to go against our grain. You know, we're here to help, we're here to transform, we're here to enlighten, like you say, but we're totally entitled to get what we need, to have the money to pay for, you know, our life and our livelihood and what we need to do to exist on this planet. And so also another question is, you know, yes, we still have our day jobs. A lot of us do. And so do those day jobs, and then make the time in your life to fulfill your purpose until you can maybe make that your full-time profession, right? So there's some logistics there of some people feel overwhelmed. I've got my day job, and then I've got all this stuff that I want to do, all this help that I want to give. And a lot of times it's almost as simple as making a to-do list, writing out what it is you feel you want to do from a spiritual side of your life, from a transformational side of your life. And there's so much time in the day. Prioritize the list and do what you can do in there, and stop beating yourself up for the stuff you're not doing or the stuff you can't get to.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Tommy. I know that for myself, you know, when I think about my day job, the physical things that I have to do, it's easy for me to make a list. But when I think about spiritual stuff, how I want to help people wake up, just articulating that, putting it into words, I find difficult, let alone creating a list of all the things I need to do in order to make that a reality. You know, what I found difficult is, and I'm sure that you've had the same experience, is saying, okay, this is what I offer, and this is how I can help you, and these are the ways that you can see your life improve, and this is how much I charge for that. When someone doesn't quite grok what it is you're offering, it's harder for them to understand the value that they're getting for the money that you're asking for. So the balance kind of gets a little bit skewed. So I can totally resonate with what Rhonda's saying there.
Yeah, totally agree with all that, David. And there's another whole maybe discussion in that in a future show about how to market ourselves and how to express what it is we're here to help with and how to offer that to people. So they realize that they do need it. I mean, fundamentally, at the core value of everything that goes on in the life, this getting to know yourself, getting to know who I am and why we're here, is really the only purpose of your life on this planet right now.
Absolutely.
And then once you do that, helping other people do the same thing.
Yep, so absolutely.
You need to figure out how to kind of tie that into what motivates people to do things today.
Yeah, and as you said that, I was just thinking, I just got to say this. It's such a beautiful thing. I just want to remind people that just remember what it was like when you were in kindergarten, you know, and you were looking up to those grade 1 kids. They were so far ahead of you, and you couldn't imagine how much you had to go through to become like them. This is what our life on this planet is like. When I get a little bit further ahead of you, I can reach my hand back and help you get to where I am now. And similarly, someone ahead of me is waiting for me to come forward. So we're all on a progression. And you don't have to be like super far ahead to be able to help somebody and to be aligned with your purpose and to be offering your gift. Just because you're only one step ahead doesn't mean you don't have value.
Beautifully put. Thanks. All right. Well, Rhonda, again, your level of clarity and awareness and asking those types of questions is just bright. So thanks. All right. Next one is 22. So this question comes from Beata, and it is about forgiveness. And we're going to have a whole show about forgiveness next week, so that's going to be awesome. Will you be willing to riff on the topic of forgiveness, she asks. Practices you found especially effective for letting go and being able to soften what has become hardened. So I assume here we're talking about relationships maybe, and things that become hardened and how to let things go. I think this whole world could use some mercy right now. And yes, we could. So, David, you want to start off on forgiveness? It's
Yeah, I love the phrases that Beata used there about softening something that's grown hard. I can certainly resonate with that in my own life. I had a lot of, let's call it hard energy directed towards my mother because of beliefs that I had about how she brought me up. And I had to do my own inner work. I had to get underneath the pain and the anger and all the rest of it that was there for me, so that I could understand how I had been creating a lot of this stuff for myself. Once I did that, then I was able to step back, take another look, and see my mother in a whole different way, and that it just softened my own view of her. And now I've even reached the point now where I really have begun to appreciate so much what she did do for me. However, I did have to go through that process for myself, and it was a lengthy process for me. So part of the work I do now with other people is I help them to do this much more quickly, because now I've figured out how to do it. I'm not, bumping up against all these strange walls, not knowing where I'm going anymore. So now I can help people get there a lot faster. So for me, it took time. For someone else, I mean, there is going to be some time involved. It's kind of like giving birth to a baby. It takes the time it takes. So that's what I say about that.
All right, so you can forgive the whole world in about 9 months or so. That's what it'll take. So I'll add some things in there that helped me, really sunk in with me when I was going through this phase of learning how to forgive. And it's a quote attributed to they say to Jesus. The last words he said were, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And growing up hearing that a lot, I always thought that meant, oh, wow, how amazing. They just hung this guy on a cross, killed him, and he's forgiving the people who did this. But the deeper meaning underneath that is really they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us don't know what we're doing until we do. As you become more aware, as you become more enlightened, as you become, more aware of yourself, you know what you're doing. There's sometimes a lot of shame and like, oh shit, I did that. Uh-oh. But that's forgiveness too. I didn't know what I was doing then. And a lot of people in the world don't know what they're doing. They're so caught in the delusions of their mind. They're so caught in the Maya. They're so caught in the chatter of what they think, what they believe, what they've been taught, what they've been told, what they've been conditioned to believe, what they've been set with viruses in their head with all this conditioning, that I can't blame anybody for their behaviors anymore.
Yeah.
As long as they're under the control of that cloud of delusion, I've got to forgive them for whatever stupid stuff they do, and myself too. And so, as I clear more of my delusions, I need to forgive myself along the way.
Actually, so there's 2 points that you brought up that I think are very important. First, they don't know what they do. I think the way I would rephrase that is, or one of the things I teach my clients, or I kind of remind them about, is we all make the best decisions we are capable of making in the moment with the information that we have available to us in that moment. And we don't have all the information. We don't have all the knowledge. So we can't really hold ourselves responsible for everything. We have to allow ourselves a little bit of slack so that 10 minutes from now, when I look back on my decision, I could say, oh, I didn't know this piece of information, and now I can decide something different. But in the process of doing that, I can also just honor myself for making the best choice I could have made in that moment and forgive any judgment I may have about it. I think self-forgiveness, and this is the second point I want to make, self-forgiveness is the only kind of forgiveness that really matters. Everything else is just fluff. If I can't forgive myself, it doesn't matter how much I forgive other people. That's what I believe.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah. No, let that soak in, because that's what people need to hear. I'm going to take one more step at it too, about past stuff. Like a lot of us, oh, I can't ever forgive them for what they did to me. If you look at it and you put yourself in the shoes of a lot of people, as David said, I don't think most people wake up in the morning trying to fuck up other people's lives.
Right.
I don't think they wake up in the morning trying to make you miserable or trying to give you a scar that's going to last your lifetime. So you have to kind of believe that people are good inside and they're doing the best they can do. And that's, David, I think what I heard you say to start that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then one other piece is you can't change it. You can't change the past. And so many people are stuck holding on to crap from the past, and it just weighs them down, and it makes life heavy, real heavy. And hopefully we'll get to a question about why it's so freaking important right now to be light and not heavy.
Yeah.
So
You're right. I mean, that's a good point. I cannot change what happened in the past, but what I can change is how I deal with it, how I react to it, in fact, I can go from a place of rejecting it to completely embracing it if I choose to. It's really all about me doing my work.
absolutely right. And I'm sure we'll get deeper into this next week because Joanne Rotterman is going to join us, and she's an author of a beautiful book called The Forgiveness Habit. So there, I set that one up, and we'll talk more about forgiveness next week. But David, thanks for sharing. That was some good stuff there.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Back to the fishbowl.
Yeah, back to the fishbowl.
All right. Let's see what magic's going to pop out this time. Question number 1 from Rosa. Rosa writes, how to stay positive at family get-togethers when people only see and talk about the negative side of life and do not accept the law of attraction, positive thinking, etc. How to stay positive at family get-togethers when people only see and talk about the negative side of stuff, and they don't kind of get the idea of positive mentality.
Yeah.
Over half the questions in this bucket have to do with relationship, and this is like one of the key ones that comes up. David, you want to start that one? Or you want me to give it a go?
What's coming up for me right now is, so much. I want to control other people. I want them to be exactly like me. I want them to have, be fully aware and fully enlightened. And yet they're not. They don't behave the way I expect them to. They behave their way.
Yeah.
And that's my work. I have to kind of just accept them as they are and just take a breath. That's what I have to do.
So this doesn't work? Come on.
I don't like that too much. I'd rather do it to them.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I was imitating. Yeah. So, Rosa, there's a couple things. Obviously, that you're asking this question means that you're coming from that positive place in life. If you're in a situation and you're feeling the negativity and you're watching the gossip and you're like, you know what, I am so done with this. I separate myself. I walk away from those conversations. I go play with the dog. I go talk to the kids. I go do things. I walk my walk. I hold my ground, so to speak. I hold my ground that I'm grounded in this positive process and this awakening and this awareness, and I hold on to that. I first of all just don't join in the fight.
Yeah.
Take your energy away from it. Turn your back on it. If they're going to be stuck in it, as David said, you can't control. The only thing you control is yourself. You can maybe influence others, but you can't control others. And so just need to kind of maybe take a step back and just keep living the example. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to be. People will take notice that are meant to take notice. Some family members will probably come at a future time and ask you what's going on. You seem different. And you know what? You may lose some relationships. You may lose some friendships along the way because people say, well, she's not joining in the bitch party anymore. And right, I don't anymore. And then those people don't want to hang out with me anymore. I can't control that either. And it's harder with family and stuff like that. But I'm going to just encourage you to hold your ground and be true to who you are. And trust that there are a lot of us out here doing this same thing, that you're not alone.
Yeah, that's a great point too, Tommy, and you just reminded me of something that, 25 years ago, I was a certain way. I showed up a certain way, and I probably participated in a lot of these gossip things and you name it. I contributed enough negative energy in this world back then. But in that time intervening between then and now, I've done a lot of personal growth work on myself, and I noticed that when occasions have shown up when I've kind of been in the company of those people, I have just noticed how uncomfortable I have felt. I've said, wow, I just don't want to be here anymore. This is not me anymore. I don't want to be in this kind of conversation. And so I would just slowly start to pull away. And yes, They don't like me anymore because I'm not contributing to their way of being. They don't want to be with me anymore. And in some ways, it's kind of painful. But I have a choice to make. Who am I? Am I the kind of person who wants to be, in that kind of relationship, or do I want to be who I really am over here? Let them do their work and come to me if that's what they choose to do. But I'm not going to engage that kind of behavior anymore. I think it's a difficult choice sometimes, and it might be painful, and it's kind of like having a divorce, because we came together in relationship way back when, it served us, and now we're diverging. This is life.
Yeah, it's painful sometimes, and especially as Rosa asked, you specifically asked about family gatherings. So the closer the longer you've been in a relationship with people, the stronger those ties are. And I want to talk just briefly about those ties. Those ties are energy games. We share energy with each other, and the more awake and aware you are, you consciously share energy. You can share love, you can share affection, you can give all this energy. But a lot of us from an early age aren't taught that, and we behave in a way that we think we're like a standalone battery that gets jumper cables put on it and gets drained all the time. So we get in a very protective mode. We need to protect our energy, our life energy, our mind energy, our body energy, and we get into these dynamics with relationships where we actually play energy games, and you know what this feels like, and you know what it's like when somebody pushes your button and they get a reaction out of you. And maybe somebody knows just how to push your button, and they get you to react every time. You snap, you fly off the handle, you fight back, you cry, some emotional thing comes out, and then the emotion is the energy. So that person is actually gathering that energy, and it doesn't have to be nice energy. Some people are addicted to crappy energy. Some people are addicted to misery and sadness, and they'll push whatever buttons they can to make you miserable and sad, and then they feel like they're getting energy. So you understand the mechanics behind what's going on here. And people don't do this consciously. Most people don't do it consciously. But if you understand some of the mechanics of the energy games that go on too, you can then choose not to play in that and not to react and not to get pulled into the drama.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Tommy. Next question.
All right, next question. And once again, Rosa, you're on the right path, and you're doing great, because you're noticing that you're not like everybody anymore. All right, number 6. Okay, number 6 is a long one, and the term here is all of you is welcome. And Mike goes to say, we all say this in our men's group. It works to help a man feel safe and let down his armor, but in a relationship with a partner you live with day in and day out, should all of you is welcome be a practice? Is it realistic to be able to accept all the partner is and brings all the time? How does one say, I just can't accept that? And you need to decide whether you can change that or leave. So that's a deep one, and that's, this is relating to a one-on-one partner type relationship where the person isn't, you're not welcoming that entire person. There's something about them you don't like. There's something about them that you want to either change, or even to the point of saying, I can't take this anymore. Maybe this relationship needs to go its separate ways. David, it's a deep question. I just want to make sure I'm interpreting it correctly.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it. And thank you, Mike, for asking it. It tells me that you're in a relationship that you care about a lot, and I appreciate that. The way I look at it is, I would really like to be so enlightened that I could say, all of you is welcome to every person I'm in relationship with. And the truth is, certain behaviors really bug me. They just bug the shit out of me. And that's just my stuff. It's not about them. It's about me. And what I am really understanding about that is, I have chosen this person to be in relationship for some reason. Maybe the reason is so that I get that trigger, so that I eventually do the work on that particular issue. Maybe the reason is you know, there's so many other things that I love about this person that I'm willing to overlook a trigger in order to be connected to this person. There's all kinds of different reasons. But in any event, when the trigger comes up, that is about me. How I react to that trigger, how I deal with it is about me. It's not about the other person. I can respectfully request the other person to change a behavior, but ultimately, if they're not willing to do that, then everything else is up to me how I deal with that behavior.
Yeah, right on, David. And this gets into, I heard a woman last night doing a talk on problems, and there's a problem, right? And the problem's out there, and the problem's in here. And the only thing we really have control over is the problem in here, how we deal with it. Yeah. So Mike, I'm going to give you a suggestion, and this is something I teach my classes and something I do myself repeatedly, is somewhere in here we make up lists in our head. We have lists of expectations. We have a list of what the perfect mom should be. We have a list of what the good dad should be. We have a list of what the perfect child should be. We have a list of what a good friend should look like and talk like and smell like. And we have lists of what our partner should be. And the list is probably freaking long, because you've been making this list since you were 10, 11, 5, right? Yeah. And once you start realizing that when you believe the lie that you're not good enough by yourself and you need somebody to complete you, that silliness, you start making up a list of what that somebody should look like and smell like and feel like and look like and taste like, and oh my God, it's nutty. And every time you watch a movie, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to take that thing off the list and I'm going to add this thing because I like that better. And then, right? And so this list is ever freaking changing. It's only in our head, but yet we take out this list and we measure people against it all the freaking time. How fair is that?
Yeah, well, what's worse than that, Tommy, is my list is only in my head. My partner has no idea what's on my list. Until he or she does something that says, oh, that wasn't on the list, and then I react.
Yeah. Bah, bah, bah. Red light goes off next to that item on the list. So I'm going to encourage you and almost require you, write a list of what you expect out of a partner. And then if you want to take this to other relationships, do the same thing. It's a great practice. And then you're going to look at this list and you can say, you know what? I tell people to burn the list. Now, if your house catches on fire, that's not my fault, but do something to get rid of that list. And here's what happens. Here's what I promise will happen. You'll bring all that unconscious stuff to the surface of what you expect, what you expect, what you expect. You burn the freaking list, and what's going to be left are your true core desires. They'll still be there in the ashes. The stuff that really does matter to you. Does it matter that they leave the laundry on the floor? Really? Really? That's good. That, for me, I'm a control freak, so that used to bother me, but I had to let that one go. That was one of my triggers, right? A silly one. But they're throughout our lives. And like David said, they're there to learn from. Learn where your triggers are. Learn where your shadows are. Learn why he's triggering you, and bring it to your awareness, understand it, and drop it if it doesn't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
One other thing, Miguel Ruiz has a beautiful book called The Mastery of Love. And in there he says, you know, sometimes you're not meant to be together. Like you're a cat person and the other person's a dog person, or you wanted, you know, this and you got that. And sometimes you need to face that as well. But this will help you kind of come to your core, what's true to you, what's really important to you, and it'll kind of dissolve that imaginary made-up crap that we're brainwashed with over time.
Yeah, I think this writing the list is a very important first step, and definitely will help to raise awareness about all the things that I might be putting on someone else and not even know about. And I also like the idea of burning it. I would do some kind of a ritual process of saying, I consciously release all of the items on this list, and then just let it go. And then I love that vision of what's left from the ashes is your true desires, your true heart's desire in a partner. However, I want to just add one more thing. Tomorrow, after you've forgotten about burning this list, you're going to be building a new list. So do it again. I'm serious. It doesn't end the first day you do it. You know, one day there will come a time where you're going to sit down, you're going to try and write a list, and you're going to say, damn, I can't find anything. That'll be a good day.
Yeah, I'll until that day, here's one thing I did. There's a song out there called Merely a Man. I'm Merely a Man by
Come on, sing it, Tommy.
By XTC. And one of the, and there's a couple lines in there that we'll maybe talk about later, but one of them is, I bring nothing but love for you, and I want nothing that you can't do. So I kind of made that my list. I couldn't totally abandon the list, but I said, you know what, I want to find somebody that I just bring only love for them, and that I just want success for them. And that's what I want. So it's about them. It's about somebody else. And when you turn your attention to what is important for somebody else, and you honor that other person, and what's important to them, it takes a lot of the pain, a lot of the suffering, a lot of the expectation, a lot of the frustration out of a relationship.
Yeah, great.
To the fishbowl?
You to the fishbowl.
All right. Mike, that was a brilliantly deep question, and it resonates with a lot of the other questions we got on relationship. So thanks for being brave enough to nail that one on the head, because that is a toughie. All right, number 17. What do I need to do to prepare for the shift I hear and feel is coming? Dun, dun, dun. Amy, kind of pass that question on. So in anticipation of maybe this question coming up, some people may say, what shift? What are you talking about? Others may be going, oh yeah, I've heard about that. Or some of you may for the first time be coming up in consciousness going, I knew something was up. What is it? So I'm going to, David, before I jump into my book, do you have something to kind of key up on this shift idea?
No, you're doing great. Just go for it.
All right. Eckhart Tolle, one of our great living, breathing masters and enlightened beings on the planet, wrote this book called The New Earth. And Eckhart's talking about the shift. And what the shift is, it's a shift in human consciousness. More and more of us are waking up. More and more of us are becoming conscious and aware. More and more of us are dropping the baggage, the old thoughts and the old beliefs and the old emotions. We're getting lighter and lighter, not only mentally and emotionally, but actually physically and vibrationally, energetically. We're vibrating at higher and higher frequencies. And if you haven't heard or read about this, I'm sure you will now, because this is the way these things go. You hear about it once today, and now you hear about it tomorrow, and it'll start compounding in you. But the concept is that as a planet, we are working towards a shift in human consciousness. It's almost the next evolution of humankind, where we become aware of who I am, more aware of our own connection to source, our own connection to consciousness. So that's the gist, and let me see if there's anything else here in the book. It's called The Arising New Consciousness. And let me see if I can just get to the point here. The good news of possibly a radical transformation of human consciousness. And different religions talk about it. Some call it enlightenment, some call it salvation, some call it the end of suffering. But basically, we are at the cusp of this change. And all the sources I know and talk to and read about are saying that it's pretty close. Like we're within a couple of years maybe of critical mass accruing where this shift may start to happen.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research and reading and stuff like that. One of the things I know about Eckhart Tolle's books is that he tends to be a little bit spiritual, and so for a lot of people that can seem a little bit woo-woo and airy-fairy and out there. For those people who like a more scientific approach, I can show you this book here. It's called, I hope you can read that, The Source Field Investigations by David Wilcock. Now, David Wilcock talks about exactly the same stuff as Eckhart Tolle does. However, he looks at it from the perspective of actual scientific research that's going on right now to give some scientific basis to what Eckhart Tolle is talking about. The shift is happening, and in fact, We are key participants in this shift. We, human beings, actually are contributing to it in a bigger way than we ever even knew. And it's human consciousness, as Tommy was talking about, that's really doing it. So a lot of scientific people are looking at this and trying to understand it, and actually trying to conduct experiments to help measure it in a way that makes it real, so it doesn't seem so much out there in our woo-woo space anymore.
Thanks, David. So yeah, bridging the gap between science and woo-woo. What the question actually says, what do I need to do to prepare?
Mm-hmm.
So everything we do at Life Matters TV is help what? Get out of jail, set ourselves free, lighten our load a bit. And that's my advice to everybody, is continue to lighten your load. And where our loads reside in ourself is in our minds and our thoughts. You know, Rosa asked about, that people aren't into the positive thinking. They're still in the negative. They're still, gossiping. That's heavy. The gossiping, the negative talk, the fear-based talk, the worry-based talk, misery loves company kind of crap. That's heavy. That's going to weigh you down. It's going to keep your vibration level low. Our root energy centers in our body are stuck in fear and greed. That's what kind of grabs us and keeps us from elevating and being lighter. Yeah. So there's mechanics behind it, there's science behind it, there's inner work to be done behind it. Not only our thoughts, but our emotions. And we just spent the first half of the show talking about how to drop emotional baggage, how to let it go, how to forgive, because that weighs you down. If you think about a balloon trying to take off and you're in that balloon, and you've got all these sandbags and all these cement blocks and all this, all these boat anchors tied to that balloon, you're not going anywhere. You have to learn how to cut and snip and break those bonds. It's what David does. It's what I do through my Chatter Relaxer program. I'm renaming it Lighten Up, because that's what we need to do right now. We need to lighten up our minds, lighten up our hearts, get clear heads, clear hearts, vibrate higher, go with the shift.
I love that image of the balloon. I think that is brilliant, because what you just did was you said, all right, I actually want to raise my balloon. I cannot raise my balloon without paying attention to the concrete blocks, the anchors, the sandbags, and everything else that are weighing me down. I can't simply refuse to acknowledge their existence and expect life to just suddenly magically turn around. I have to accept what is before I can even have a remote chance of changing it. So, as you said, Tommy, now I see the sandbags, I can say, oh, that thing's holding me down. I can just let that go and say, thank you for serving me and keeping me here, because I needed to be here for a while. Now it's time to go. You can say to the anchor, boy, you've done a great job of keeping me in this place. I really appreciate what you've done for me, and now it's time for me to move on. You can do that. And that's what I think we're trying to get people to do in this show, is wake up, not ignore stuff going on around us, but accept it and then change it from within.
Thank you, wise one. Yeah, no, that's beautifully put. Thanks, David. Yeah. All right, Amy, again, thanks for the question. You just helped lots of people. All right, so number 3. Thank you for that. All right. Okay, I love this question. I really like the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I already mentioned one of his other books, the Mastery of Love. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. My struggle is with agreement number 2. Don't take anything personally. How on earth do I do that? Randy, I love your explicit there. How the hell do I not take things personally? Great question. And it's one of our anchors, right? So, yep. David, why don't you kick off with how to not take things personally?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I can certainly resonate with that. I guess what I do know to be true is that anything that's going on inside me is about me. So if somebody I'm in relationship says something and it triggers a reaction in me, the reaction is about me. And it could very well be that that person actually was trying to trigger a reaction in me. Mm-hmm. That's possible too. In which case, that's about him or her, and they've got something going on. I can't do his or her work. I can only do my work. I can just do my best not to react and just to kind of take a breath, like Tommy says, gently let it go. Think of it as one of those anchors that's holding me down, and try to get myself back out of my fear body and into my love body. I think that's really all I can do. And if I continue to do that over practice, what I am essentially doing is I'm learning how not to take things personally.
Yep, exactly right. And David, I'm going to share a couple practices or techniques that different teachers have taught to me over time. Somebody said to me once, like when you're in a heated moment, when you're in a situation where you tend to take things personally, like the stuff's being thrown at you and it's just hitting you all over the place, and you're either fighting back or falling down and crying. Pretend like you're a screen door.
Ooh, I like that. A screen door.
A screen door.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick up other people's crap just because they're throwing it out.
Right.
So that image helped me a lot. Like, let it just pass through me. It usually when people are bursting out, like you said, they've got their own crap going on. They've got their own head full of delusions and chatter and noise and crummy emotions, and they're exploding for some reason. I don't need to take that. I don't need to take it personally. So one image there is this screen door. I'm going to give two others because one of these will hopefully catch. Another one is, we talked about energy games earlier. So now that you're kind of aware, or you have been aware, that people do play energy games, and again, not consciously playing it, but they're pushing your buttons or throwing stuff at you. Some ancient teaching, maybe it was a Buddhist teaching, talked about shooting. It's like somebody shooting an arrow at you, right? Think of that energy that is coming at you, and they're shooting an arrow at you. Well, you kind of start to know who is playing what game. This boss likes to push this button. And it's almost like, you know what? Like in the Matrix, when Neo slows things down and sees the bullets coming, you're going to start to see this stuff coming. And instead of taking the shot in the heart and taking the arrow out and shooting it back at him,
yeah,
you're gonna start to do this. At first, you may just armor up, and the arrow may hit you and fall down, and that means you're just not reacting, right? You're choosing a little bit of a pause there. Eventually, you'll get a little better at it with a little bit of practice, and you'll see the arrow coming, and you just step out of the way, and it'll go shooting by you. And again, you won't react. You won't get pulled into their drama. You won't get pulled into their taking things personally. And another thing that you'll eventually do with some practice is you'll be able to someday catch that arrow. And what they say is you can hand back a rose. You can give something back to that person that'll help them heal whatever is causing them to shoot arrows in the first place.
Right.
So there's another kind of just visual interactions. One of the things that we've talked about in previous shows, and we'll talk about again, is this thing of approvalitis.
Yeah.
We feel like we need other people's approval all the time, and when they take it away from us or they seem to disapprove of us, we take it personally. We feel crushed. It's like somebody's yanked the bottom card out of your house of cards and the whole house comes tumbling down. So bring some awareness to what's going on. Like, how are they pushing your buttons? Why are you taking it personally? There's lots of other things that we'll hopefully talk about with some other questions about root causes and stuff like that. But there's just some top-level stuff to help you deal with that, taking things personally.
That's great, Tommy, and I really like the grab the rose or grab the arrow and hand back a rose. One of the things that kind of hit me as you were talking about this is, I think probably the biggest reason I get triggered when someone is saying something about me is because they actually found a piece of truth about me that I'm not really wanting the world to see. And so maybe there's an alternative here, and I can look at the arrow and say, wow, thank you for that. I see some truth in there for me. And I really appreciate your bringing that to my attention. And that's the kind of rose that you're handing back. So if I can not, part of the reason that I get triggered is I'm judging myself pretty harshly by that very thing anyway. And so here's an opportunity for me to forgive myself as well. Mm-hmm. I think this is a really beautiful question, and boy, I'm sure glad it came up. It's just brought up a lot of good stuff for me. So who was it? Randy that brought that one up? Is that what his name was?
Yeah, Randy brought that one up, and you know what, David? I'm going to put this one aside because this is worth a whole show on in the future.
Yeah.
Because this is really deep, and just talking about a couple ideas and concepts may help alleviate some of the pressure and stress, but this is well worth diving into deeper.
Great.
Awesome question, Randy. Thanks. All right. How are we doing on time?
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. All right. Well, hopefully people are finding value in their time spent with us today. All right. Question number 13 is, has the shift begun, and do we know when the shift will be complete? We kind of already addressed this. David, you said pretty clearly that the shift is already underway. We're already vibrating at higher frequencies through our consciousness and awareness. When it'll actually, there's going to come a point when it's going to have kind of hit this tipping point, this critical mass, and then what happens there and how long it's going to take is I've seen different ideas and different people saying different things about it. Mm-hmm. So I don't really have a good answer for that one right now. The only thing I can say is stay light, turn away from the fear. Don't let the fear grip you, because if things start going a little haywire out there, this is an energy balance. This is an energy game that's going on the planet too. And while energy can neither be created nor destroyed, as the light gets lighter, there's going to be things that dark is going to get a little darker. So stay on the light, stay light, trust your heart, trust what feels peaceful, trust what feels right. You know, get beyond the noise and the heaviness and the chatter. You know, you're going to keep working on cutting those anchors and those blocks and the weight. And don't get sucked back into the fear part. Just right. Stuff's going to happen. It may even be scary. That we don't know. But don't get pulled into it. Stay light.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Question number 19. Question number 19. How does free will play into karma-driven destiny? How can we have both a path and free will? So how does free will play into karma-driven destiny? I think this one talks about, and I've heard this argument before, right? Oh, everything that you're doing is predestined, then you don't have to make any choices, and even if you don't think about things, the same stuff's going to happen. And then yet we have free will. And we do, as human beings, have free will. And it's actually a special gift that humans have. To me, I have in front of me always kind of a path. And in that path is where I'm in the flow. I'm feeling, I'm following my intuition. I'm following insights. I'm, calm and peaceful most of the time. And life's still going to, have throwing shit at me, and stuff's going to still be happening. But generally, I'm going to be in this almost like this river, and people use a river as an analogy sometimes. I also have the free will to make choices. And if my choices are influenced by negative thoughts or stupid ideas or things that are, planted in there, and if my choices are influenced by heavy emotions and crap I'm carrying around from the past, or fears I'm creating, false fears I'm creating for the future, my free will is going to be tainted, and it's not going to be free will. It's going to be influenced will. And you can see how I may get off the river, I may climb up on a rock, I may be walking through a desert pretty soon, I may be out in the middle of nowhere with no water, with no friends, with, and I go, what the fuck just happened? How did life get so bad? It's because we were being influenced by the heavy thoughts and the heavy emotions, and our free will wasn't free. So that's kind of that may be a little woo-woo, but David, I'll throw the ball back to you.
I never threw it at you, dude. I think, well, you and I have talked a little bit about the subject of, you know, reincarnation and karma off camera here, and yeah, as I was explaining to you, I hear a lot of people talking about past lives and stuff like that, and I personally haven't had the experience of remembering a past life. So the whole notion of karma doesn't really resonate for me. I guess, you know, if I were to do one of these past life regressions with somebody, I might get something different. But right now, that idea doesn't really resonate for me, and so it's hard for me to completely grok the question. I personally believe that the way my life has gone anyway, I believe that we have the ability to make our own choices 100% of the time. Our choices may be constrained in certain ways by the physical realities of the world. Like, for example, I might like to jump off this cliff and see what it's like to fly, but the chances are I won't do it a second time. Because, you know, there's a law of gravity out there that has an impact on me. So I do have the choice of leaping off the cliff, but it wouldn't be a very smart choice unless I have learned how to levitate. So I think that the concept of a path and the concept of free will are actually very much in alignment. I may have come into this world as from a spiritual side with a very clear purpose. And in the process of going through the birth canal, I may have given up all the memories of that path. And so part of my journey in this physical world is to reconnect to that energy so that I can remember what my purpose is and then start living according to that purpose. So that's the best I can do on this one.
Yeah, deep question. Thanks for submitting it. And maybe we'll talk about that one a little more in the future too.
Yeah.
So we've got a few minutes left. I think one more question. And again, thanks to everybody who put in questions. This has been brilliant. The questions have been awesome. Hopefully, some of the oozle babble that you're getting back is helpful too. Question number 5 is from Lynn. Okay, I've identified one of my shadows. Now, how do I get rid of it? David.
Oh yeah, well I'll take that one. That's one of my favorite topics. So we all have shadows. That's my belief. And the fact of the matter is, a shadow is really, if you think about it, it's just nothing more than a very deep level belief system that, because of its strength, is able to generate certain kinds of behaviors. So I can't ever get rid of a shadow. What I can do is I can find it, I can illuminate it, I can heal it, and then I can integrate it back in. I can take the energy that shadow part generates in its own dysfunctional way, and I can start repurposing that energy to do something that serves me rather than hindering my life. That's how I would answer that question.
Okay. And this is one where this has come up before, and I kind of disagree a little bit. And maybe it's just the nomenclature. I understand that, you know, if we have a shadow, it's a combination of maybe a thought and an emotion that is anchored us, you know, to some point in the past, and going through a process of disassociating that thought from that emotion will, again, like cut that tie to that weight. So we'll still have a thought. Maybe that's what we mean by we still have that shadow. We still have a thought that is in our memory. It's almost like a scar that's still there, but it doesn't hurt anymore, and it doesn't cause more pain. So that's the disassociation of how to disconnect those that's been helpful for me. And the process of doing that is becoming aware of it. Okay, Lynn, you became aware of a scar or a shadow. Step number 1. The second thing I do is I try to understand it. I logically try to understand what this is, what impact it's having on my life, and where it freaking came from if I can. If I can root cause it back to the root, and then do something to shift the energy away from it, to either forgive it, to let it go, to somehow get over it, and to have an experience of what life is like without that darkness, without that heaviness in it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, I don't think we disagree at all. I think we agree and just have different terminology. Well, we're getting close to the end here, Tommy, and I know you had to rush off because you got some kind of a meeting. So I'm gonna, say thank you so much for doing this. It was an awesome show. I really enjoyed it, and I think we should do this again sometime.
I think so too. It's lovely. Again, thanks everybody for your participation and putting in these awesome questions. And until next time, peace and love always.
All right. Goodbye, Tommy. And by the way, everybody, I just want to remind you, Tommy already mentioned this earlier on in the show, but next week we're going to have a special guest. Her name is Joanne Roderman, and she is a beautiful and brilliant woman who has an amazing teaching around the concept of gratitude and forgiveness. So I'm really looking forward to having her join us next week. So until then, have a great week, and may your life be fully illuminated. Bye-bye.